Hello everybody and welcome to Kerbal Space Program. This is episode 15, and in this episode I think we're going to talk about making a single stage to orbit spaceplane, or SSTO plane. And you can use these things to start off on the ground and on the runway, and using air-breathing jet engines to get about between 15 and 20 kilometers up ideally. And then once that happens, you switch over to rocket engines, and the rockets take you the rest of the way into orbit. Hence, single stage to orbit. There's only one stage in this whole thing. So let's get started here. Go back into our game here. It's kind of been a while since I made a video. I kind of got tied up doing an Amnesia The Dark Descent mod. I don't know if you guys play Amnesia or know about it. It's a horrendously horrific game. Very scary game, and there's a whole modding community out there that I kind of got into. But anyways, let's go to the spaceplane hangar here. Okay, so I think in our previous episode we used this Mark 1 cockpit here. It's the smallest one. But I think today we're going to scrap that. We're going to go with the Mark II. And the reason being, we can kind of strap on some other interesting things to this. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this nose cone adapter here from the structural tab. And just pop that right in the front. So what that's going to allow me to do now is go over to control here. Is it in control? Where did it go? Utility, maybe? It kind of changed. Here it is, the sensor array. That used to be in control, but it's in science now. And what you can do with this, if you're playing the career mode, you can use this to just get tons of science. You can do kind of atmospheric tests and whatnot. Alright, so that's the front of our craft. We're going to want this Kerbal to be able to get out, so let's go ahead and slap on a ladder here. Press the D key and the shift. Nope, D key, shift W to get it just a little bit more, a little like that. This way our Kerbal can get out. Alright, so one of the things we're going to want to include in this design is definitely RCS. And the reason being is that we're going to take this thing into space. It's going to need to be able to thrust and maneuver in space. Alright. Might just come over here and grab a battery. Pop it on there. Now let's talk about the propulsion. I'm going to use these rocket fuel tanks here, because we're going to be able to, like once we switch over to rockets, we're going to need the oxidizer into them. So I think we'll grab two more. Hit the X key. So we'll kind of put them like that. And so let's see. What we'll do is we'll throw on here two of these turbojets. Put them on like that. And we'll grab from over here one of these engines. Now, vectoring doesn't matter too much, so I'm just going to grab the this one over here, the non-vectoring engine. Pop that guy right on there. Alright, let's go get some wings. Grab the delta wing. If you right-click, actually you don't have to right-click it, but you can see how much lift rating this thing gets. So this one gets 1.9 lift. Let's see, the one over here, like this one gets 1.3, 0.4. So we're just going to grab that delta wing. 1.9 is a pretty good amount. Hit the X key, you'll get two of them. I'll just bring them back as far as it goes. Alright, let's not forget our control surface. We're just going to press the D key and swivel it around. We're going to pop it right in the back like that. And whenever I do control surface, I just like to do this here. I right-click it. We want these horizontal ones to only control pitch. We don't want them to yaw. So we'll just disable the yaw. And I'm pretty sure it does it for both. Yes. Alright, let's come over here and let's throw on some of these winglets here. And again, we'll right-click these and we'll disable the pitch on them. So these will yaw. Alright, let's not forget intakes. Let's see if we can fit these on. Yes, they do fit. Good. Perfect. Alright. Next, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to drain these outer tanks into this center tank here. So we're just going to attach some fuel lines. So from the middle to the center, just like that. Alright. Also, it's probably a good idea to strut things together. So we're just going to bring them in like that. Alright. There we go. Okay, you know it's a good idea too? We should probably strut from the wing here up to this, just for extra stability. There we are. Let's grab the landing gear. Definitely don't want to forget that. So let's see. Put this one. And again, I like to flip it around so that the vertical gear thing is in the front. And we'll just alt-click and grab two of them. Now, I used to place these on the wings, but, you know, something strange kept happening with stability. I didn't really like the way it was working out, so I started putting them on the bottom here. I'm just going to Shift Q them kind of like on the sides, down like that. And I should flip them around too. Let's see. I'll have to do it again. Let's see. So, Shift Q. Now, if it becomes unstable, we can always mess with it. You know, I'm just thinking here. I'm just looking at this engine. It's kind of sticking out far. I might swap it, believe it or not, for the Aerospike, toroidal Aerospike rocket. It's a little less thrust, but it doesn't stick out as far. It might be better for us. I think I just might move these back a little bit. Yeah, that should make it better. Let's see. We're gonna want to put some canards in the front. Let's see here. Let's put our center of mass and center of lift. That's good. Now let's see. This is kind of tricky because we have this ladder in the way and we have this intake in the way. I might put it on the... let's see. Like, this might be too far forward. Yeah, because what's going to happen is our fuel is going to start draining and our center of mass is going to move back. See if I can get away with moving it over here. Okay, so it lets me. It's cutting off the ladder, though. That's the one thing I don't like about it. It might be okay, though. Maybe let's take this ladder here. Just the ladder. Come on. Nope. There we are. Maybe I'll just move it in like that. This way the Kerbal can still kind of get up there. Maybe he can shimmy his way to the left a little bit to get onto there. Alright, let's save this thing so far. We'll call it the Dompy SSTO. Okay, we're going to want to slap some power on this thing. Photovoltaics. Let's see, we will just put them on the sides here. And maybe some in the middle. And it's always a good idea to put them on the bottom too, because once you get into space, you'll be flipping around and stuff, so you want to put those down there. Well, before I forget, we should put some RCS. I mean, we did, after all, put RCS fuel, so I always like to put 2 on the sides here, on the sides of the wings. And I like to grab this Place Anywhere, the linear RCS port, just because it's going to be less weight. You're going to have to put less thrusters on, but we do need to put some thrusters in the front as well, so we'll put them again just like that, and this way we can maneuver once we're actually in space. Let's see, let's put a couple more intakes on. We'll put the radial mounted ones, because the more intakes you have, the better. You're gonna want that ship to get higher using the jet engines. Like, the less you have to use the rocket engine, the better. Because once that thing kicks in, it's going to just eat your fuel like crazy. So we're going to want as much air as possible when we're using these jet engines. Let's just check our center of thrust is indeed going right through the center of mass. That is important, that pink reticule goes right through that yellow and black one. So that's looking okay so far. Now, are we going to have enough fuel? I don't know. So I haven't really built this design before. I'm kind of just going off of what I think is going to be good. I have built SSTOs, just not exactly like this. And there is another way to do it using a new part called the Rapier engine. And it's right there. So maybe we'll do one like this, and then maybe we'll do one using the Rapier engine. But let's try this one first. We'll see how we go with this. Let me just double check everything. We have our wings, we have our control surfaces, we have our 2 jet engines, we've got our aerospike intakes, RCS. I almost forgot. There's one very critical thing we're going to need, actually. We're going to want to put a docking port in there. It's a Clampetron docking port. And the reason is, I'm going to put it kind of close to the center of mass. The reason we're going to want that in there is because once you get this thing into orbit, it's gonna ideally use all your fuel. You're gonna have like vapors left over by the time you get this in orbit. You're gonna want to redock with some sort of space station just to get more fuel into it. So you want to take this thing to Lathe or you know, Duna or whatever. I don't know why you would take a space plane to Duna, but let's say you want to go to Lathe, you know, one of the moons of Jewel. You're gonna want to refuel this thing. Of course, if you are taking this interplanetary, you might also want to do something different, maybe with the atomic rocket engine, having like another stage with those atomic engines on there. But I think for now, let's do this one now. Let's go to the action groups here, because we have to mess around with these a little bit. So we'll put engine custom 1 will be the toroidal aerospike. We'll toggle that. Custom 2 will be the toggle the engines, the jet engines, and we'll say toggle or custom 3 will be we'll like kind of switch everything. So toggle those, and it's also gonna we'll say shut down the air intakes. The reason you want to shut these things down is, you know, once, let's say you're getting up pretty high and you want to switch over to your rocket engine, you're going to want to turn off the intakes, because that actually creates drag, and it could pull your ship in ways you don't want to be pulled. So that's why we're doing that. Now, when we get out there, we're going to hit space to activate everything, and then we're just going to hit the 1 key to turn off the rocket engine, and just use the 2 jet engines. Now, once we get high enough, we're going to hit the 3 key, and it's going to flip everything. It's going to turn off the jets and turn on the rocket engine. And that's the plan. So let's pick our crew. Who's going to fly it? Let's have Geofsted Kerman. He's pretty stupid and not very courageous, so this should be interesting. We'll see how this one goes. Like I said, I've not launched this one. I didn't build this one beforehand to make sure it worked before I started recording. I just kind of wanted to build it in live, real time for you guys. So let's see what happens. Okay, there's a little wobble in the front there, but so we're gonna hit space, and we're gonna hit 1 to turn off the rocket engine, and we're gonna throttle up. So hopefully this thing doesn't like veer off course like crazy and kill our pilot there. That would be very unfortunate. So I'm just kind of pressing the S key just to get us up in the air as soon as possible. It's taking a little bit, I guess. Come on, get us there. Looks like we're veering off a little bit. She just does not want to lift off. Here we go, we're starting to get there. Here she goes. Alright. You know, it's one thing I forgot to put on here. I forgot to put on some kind of stability, SAS. And that could actually mess with us. I mean, like, we have reaction wheels here in the cockpit. It just might not be enough. But let's just see how we go. We might not need it. So I guess we'll find out. We'll just see. So, as a rule of thumb, you kind of want to just, right off the bat, point your nav ball to about 45 degrees on the 90-degree line here. And what that's going to do is just, it's going to get us high enough altitude, we get some lateral speed at the same time. So we're just going to climb like this basically until we hit, you know, around the 15-kilometer mark. So far, it's pretty stable. Now, if you right-click your intakes here, you can kind of see what they're doing. You can see that they're open. This one, they're giving us 0.2 each. Now these radial ones here are giving us a little less. Oh, actually, no, they're not. How about that? Usually they give you less, but I guess it's working out nicely this way. That's okay. But it, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's taking all of it into consideration. If you look up the top right, intake air 1.6, that's great. Now once that intake gets down to around 0.02, it's basically out, and that's when you're going to want to switch over, press the 3 key, turn off the jets, turn on the rocket, and use rocket power. You're probably wondering, well, what happens if you don't do that? Well, because we have 2 jet engines here, it's a possibility that one will flame out, the other one will stay on for a second, and it'll cause a spinning kind of spin effect, and we don't want to be spinning out when we're 20 kilometers up above the ground there. Not good. So, you know, we are going to want to turn those jet engines off before they start to flame out. Alright, we're coming up on 5 kilometers here. We're doing just fine, it seems like. Good old Geofsted Kerman. Now, when you do IVA inside the cockpit, this is the one thing I don't like about the Mark II cockpit, is it doesn't make any sense. There is no cockpit. It's just like he's just sitting there with no controls, no window, even though it clearly has a window. I think it's just something that Squad hasn't designed yet. I'm sure it's going to come in on another update or something. If it really bugs you, I'm pretty sure that somebody made a mod on the modding page there. There's a ton of mods for this game where they actually made the Mark II cockpit on the inside. I forget what it's called, so I'm not going to link it in the description, but there is one if you want to go looking around for it. Alright, we're getting pretty high now. 76, 77. Still climbing. Let's look at the map. Yeah, what do I got going on here? Tuna Explorer Mark I probe. I'm not sure what that is. Well, anyways, here's us. This is kind of what our angle looks like here. And as we get higher, see our apoapsis is 10 now. We're going to start pitching the craft more horizontally to pick up more lateral speed. But we want to get that height first and foremost. If you check on the top, the very top center, there's like a little altimeter there, and what that's telling us is our vertical speed. Now, if it's pointing straight up, it looks like we're climbing at 100 plus, meters per second. So every second we're gaining about 100 meters of altitude. That's really good. If that ever starts dipping down, it means you're going to start falling. Now, at this point, it's 13. I'm going to start pitching the ship down closer towards the prograde vector, and if you look at our surface speed, now it's going to really start ramping up, and that's what we want. Like, we're high enough. We're still going to be climbing. If you check it out on the top, we're not climbing quite as fast, but we're still climbing. We want to gain more lateral speed. See, we're approaching our apoapsis very quickly, but that's okay. Let's just make sure we don't actually fall. So I'm just going to pitch up a little bit. I don't want to fall. So from this point on, it becomes a balancing game of continuing to gain altitude, but yet also gain horizontal speed, lateral speed, surface speed, if you will. Because if we go too high without getting too fast laterally, we're going to run out of intake air. That's one of the properties of these intakes here. The faster you go, the more air kind of gets in there. And you kind of also want to just reach that orbital velocity or get close to it before you get to your rocket engines. So again, you want to let these jet engines do most of the work. You want to let them get you as high as possible before you kick in the rocket engine. So if we look at our fuel, we barely used any of the liquid fuel, and that's perfect because these jet engines are very, very, very fuel efficient. Alright, climbing high again, so I'm just going to lower the ship just to get more speed. We're at Mach 2. Mach 2 being 2 times the speed of sound now. The speed of sound being 300 meters per second, so we are now going faster than Mach 2. We're going to want to get to about Mach 4, believe it or not, before we kick in the rocket engine. So about 1300 meters per second. Alright, see, we're just hitting the apoapsis. I'm going to climb a little bit higher now. So again, it's just a balancing game. I'm also keeping an eye on my intake. Now, if you look, 0.33, it was just 0.32 a second ago. And that's because it's gaining a little bit, and now it's falling a bit, but it's staying there because we're picking up so much forward speed. It's kind of just jamming the air into the intake there. A little faster. Alright, 700 meters per second. Still climbing. Doing just fine here. So like I said, ideally we're going to want to get to about 20 kilometers before we switch over. If we can get to 22, that would be even better. So the higher and faster, the better. So you can just see our orbit here is just slowly increasing downrange. It's getting wider and wider, and that's good. That's what we want. Intake is now 0.23. That's fine. Apoapsis is just about 20. So again, I'm just going to point the ship down just a touch. That's really getting away from us. I want more forward speed, so I'm just going to point it down. Because we were already at 20. Intake is at 0.1. Oh, we're getting re-entry effects. Cool, cool. If you're playing with the deadly re-entry mod, this would not be good for you, but we're not playing with deadly re-entry, so it's okay. Alright, we've now passed Mach 3. We passed Mach 3 a while ago. Wow, we were going really fast. That's good. Intake's holding at 0.16. This is the exciting part. Just getting to the apoapsis, so I might... Actually, I'm just going to leave it right here. This is fine. We're still picking up a lot of lateral speed. Now, I've kind of got my finger hovering over the 3 key because, you know, this is the time where things start getting hairy. But we'll see how we go. Intake's holding at 0.16. That's good. I think it's actually 0.1 or 1.2 is when you really want to cut it out. You want to cut off. But let's just see. So we're now at 1200. Wow. 3, 6, 9, 12. That's Mach 4. That's great. So we're just holding it like 1 second away from apoapsis. I'm just gonna see how long I can keep this up for. It looks like it's going just fine. Now we're only raising at about 10 meters per second vertically upwards, but you know, that's okay. We're not really burning too much fuel, and we're constantly picking up speed, so that's good. Those are all good things. We're just about at 22. Wow, we're actually pushing the apoapsis away from us. Intake's now dropping to 0.15. Wow, we made it to 22 kilometers. This is really good. Let's just see how high we can get it. Still increasing speed. Intake's 0.14. I might let it get to 0.12. In fact, any second now. And now. Alright, so that we are now on rocket power. I'm just going to point this thing right back to 45 again, because we want to just lift out. Oh boy. Now this is where SAS would have come in handy, because it doesn't like what we're doing. It's almost not enough thrust. But as long as we don't start falling, I'm actually going to kick on RCS. Oh, that's helping. Okay, whew, that helped a lot. That saved our ass. So yeah, use the RCS. It's okay if you're in the atmosphere. Use it. That's what it's there for. It's going to help just keep your nose up. You're going to want to point at 45. Just get out of the soup. Let's see if I release. Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to have to constantly keep that pointed up using the S key. Let me look at the orbit. Yeah, now this toroidal aerospike engine is not, you know, it's not the strongest thing. So we might have some problems getting up there, but we'll see. Nobody likes problems getting it up, so we'll just try to avoid that. Now what you want to watch out for here is your oxidizer. It's going to run down just as much as your liquid fuel, if not more. Here we are. So we're starting to see the stars. That's good. Apoapsis is pushing away. I'm just going for height right now. We have like a decent amount of speed, so it's okay. We just want to get the heck out of the atmosphere because it's causing a lot of drag. Oh, there's the moon. Look at that. So I've kind of stopped pushing up with S. We've finally gotten out of the atmosphere enough to where it's liking this kind of trajectory. And I'm actually just worried a little bit about the center of mass now, so I'm going to be very careful when pointing upwards. Apoapsis 32. Oh, look at there's Gemini 6 right there. We could almost kind of do a rendezvous with those guys. Now, if you have installed the Kerbal engineering system, you'll be able to see your apoapsis without flicking back and forth to the map view. I do have it installed, I just didn't put it on the ship because I kind of want to make this tutorial for people who just have like a stock version of the game. Alright, apoapsis 40, this is good. Fuel is doing just fine. We still have this whole full tank here. We're just about out of these side tanks. And that's why we connected with a fuel line. dipping into the center fuel tank now. Apoapsis is 50. Gaining that height. I'm going to start pointing down now. Just to get more speed. Because we're already now Apoapsis is out of the atmosphere. That's perfect. That's great. I'm going to get this thing to 100 and then stop. And there it is. Okay. So now we can just coast. Sun sets on Kerbal. Another thing you could put on here that I didn't put on is lights. Now if you press the U key, the landing gear actually does have its own set of lights. And so if you're coming in to dock with some sort of space station, you could just use those lights. But sometimes it's also nice to have a set of lights in the front or on the back, just so you can see what's going on when you're docking. Wow, that's pretty. Look at that moon rising right there. Okay, so let's put our maneuver node. We're not out of the woods yet. We still have to make this injection burn, but I think we've got so much orbital speed already that it's barely going to take anything at all. Yeah, 20-second burn. I think we can run the engines for 20 seconds. So if you see, that's what I mean by you're going to use up every drop of fuel getting your SSTOs into orbit. And there's the music letting us know that we are now above the atmosphere. We are suborbital. So let's just do a little time warp. And time warp us to about 10 seconds out. That's when we'll start burning. You can right-click your intakes, and if it says open intake, that means that they are indeed closed. It's a little deceptive. You might look at that and say, oh my gosh, it's an open intake, but no, it's telling you that that button will open them, meaning that they're closed. So here's our burn. Thrusting. Just finishing the maneuver here, finishing the orbit. Just pushing it out. Five seconds left. There we are. Let's just finish it off. 100 by 99. Very close. Close enough. And if you look, see out our right window should be Gemini 6. Up there they are. 87 kilometers away. Now let's say those guys were a space station. This would be a perfect opportunity to set those guys as the target and just kind of move over to them. They're only 89 kilometers away, so it wouldn't be too hard to get to them, but there's really no point to get over to them. They don't have a whole lot of fuel to give us, so we won't go there. Maybe in a future episode, though, we'll launch a kind of like a space station with fuel, and we'll dock up our ship here with Geovsted Kerman, who has put this space plane into orbit. Now let's see. Once you're in orbit, you can kind of do all kinds of cool things, just like anything else. And like you see, we've got our RCS jets, and that'll just help us maneuver around. Let's see how I balanced it. So I'll just use the I key. Not bad. I mean, we move a little bit downwards, but it's not too bad. It's not enough to be annoying. Let's see, I'll translate this way. We don't really swivel too much either. That's good. So what I'm looking for is, like when you translate, that's like you push the ship around while maintaining the same heading. You don't want your ship to rotate. So for example, if you used the J key here and you went like that, like started spinning around, that's bad. You want it to basically, like when you use that J key, the nose should stay pretty much still. You don't want to be rotating around. Same deal here. If you translate down and up, you don't want the nose to dip too much. But it's not bad. It's a little bit. It could be better, but it's not horrible. So this is a pretty good design. I'm going to turn the RCS off before I use it all. You obviously want to keep as much RCS monopropellant as possible, because that'll really help you dock. And so there it is. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little tutorial on making an SSTO and getting it into orbit. So join us next time. Thanks for watching.